It's that time of the year which canon law tells me that I have to give a finance report to the parishioners. I've never liked doing this, but you need to know all about the finances of the parish. There have been times in my past, in my other parish, for example, where things were pretty difficult, and I had to do a lot to convince people to give. This parish has been much different than that, and I can only say thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing to support St. Patrick Parish. We are stewards of God's creation, and He's given us this plot of land and these buildings so that we can further His kingdom, and it's up to us to take care of them. And you do that in such a wonderful way. There's a copy of the finance report in the bulletin today. And if you're like me, you look at it and say, what does this mean? There's just terms and lots of questions that come up. I tried to pull out a couple of things that I think are significant. First of all, you'll notice that in 2016, special collections and donations amounted to $45,483. In 2017, special collections and donations amounted to $128,405. Free will offerings to the parish. So many people use the envelope for renovation of the church. So many people just make outright donations when they know we're trying to do something. And it all adds up so that we can operate the parish and we can do capital improvements. And so I'm so grateful, just so grateful for your generosity. The offertory collection has remained pretty much the same. We could certainly use an increase there. My most valuable, I don't want to say possession, but most valuable to the parish is my part-time staff. I'm the only full-time staff member in the parish. We have Maureen Mountcastle, who's our part-time secretary, who does above and beyond all the things that a secretary is required to do because of her love for the parish. And I'm so grateful to Maureen for that. My sister Joni is a part-time housekeeper. She does much more than vacuuming and doing the laundry. She's painting walls and she's outside cleaning up the yard and doing all kinds of things all the time, above and beyond. Ron Klipchak is our part-time custodian. We no longer have a full-time custodian, but Ron gets up very early every morning and he's there every day just to look around and see what's happening with the parish grounds, what can be done, what we need to do, and so willing to give his time. Bob Varga is our parish organist and musician, director of the choir. He did a fantastic job with the music, not only at weekend masses, but at weddings and funerals and all the other special times we need him. So I'm so grateful for Bob. That's our staff. And we're just so fortunate to have them working for us. Parishioners contributing and volunteering their time. That doesn't come out on the finance report, but it's very valuable to the parish. Today I had lunch with the gardeners out on the deck behind the rectory, and was happy to have the chance to thank them. So many people, visitors, drive in here and say how wonderful the grounds look, and it's all due to people volunteering their time and talent, and sometimes their finances, in order to keep the grounds looking beautiful. And so I'm so grateful to them, and to all the other volunteers who do so much for the parish, contributing, people giving us discounted services and all that. It's so wonderful. This year we've completed the tuck pointing on the front of the church, which was a huge necessity. And then we were able to light up the front of the church. We've waterproofed. It cost us about $16,000 to waterproof the little house. You know, we own those two houses next to the school, and the smaller one has been vacant. Sister who was living there retired, went back to the mother house. And, but we needed to completely dig up around the entire foundation and seal the basement because water was coming in pretty bad, and fix the basement windows and so forth. It was about $16,000. And now that house is for sale. If anybody's interested, let me know. because we're definitely going to sell it. It'll add to the finances we need in other areas of the parish. The ceiling fans in the church they're off right now. I wish they were on. But they have been a great help here in the church in this hot weather. The landscape lighting. Father Mike Franz donated the money to put the deck on the back of the rectory, but then the parish paid $5,000 to repair the glass doors and replace them. We put new lights in the parking lot recently, which has really helped at night for safety and security. The lighting in the church, it's improved greatly in the last week, and this is the first phase. And this much was donated by a very generous parishioner, and I'm so grateful. We need to do the choir loft yet and repair in some of these chandeliers that still need some repair in the sockets. And then, of course, the next phase is the aisle and the sanctuary. So we'll continue with that, as time goes on. The rectory is in need of a security system. I think now that I'm living there alone, I think it's very important that we have security on the house. There's been too many break-ins in West Park and all around. Cars have been stolen from our own parking lot. And sometimes I'm just there at night and hearing things and wonder anybody could break in so easily. And so I'm looking into a security system for the house. They have one now that I hope to do that now that I'm getting older. If I'm in trouble physically, I can't get to anyone. That happened this year when I was really needed to get to a hospital, and I called everybody whose number I had, and no one answered their phone. But there's one now, and I had it before, where there'll be a button by my bed, and if I press that, they'll know it's a medical emergency, and they'll come and help. And then there's another section of it that's for fire. So if a fire broke out and I wasn't there, they would alert the fire department. And then, of course, if there's a break-in, it would alert me with sirens going off. So we'll try to put that in the near future. Other things that we need to do, the cemetery. I had the director of Catholic Cemeteries out this week, or 2 weeks ago, to look at it with me, and he's going to have the crew from Holy Cross Cemetery come out. Insurance is going to pay for the tombstones that have gotten knocked over and need to be repaired, and he's going to send his crew out to start leveling the lawn and raising up tombstones that have sunk into the ground. We really should have, they're telling me, about $500,000 in an endowment fund for the cemetery, because it needs to be there until Jesus comes back at the second coming. And so we have to take care of it. And the people in the cemetery are people who donated their time and talent to build this church and to make it possible. So we owe them gratitude and we owe them respect, certainly, to have a beautiful cemetery. So we'll be working on that in the near future. We need to put a new fence up around it, and I'll let you know about how that's going. Recently, I opened up a cemetery endowment fund account. I put the first $100 into it myself just to open it up. And what I decided was almost every funeral, the families of the person that died donate $100 to the parish. And so from now on, I'm putting that $100 into that account for our cemetery. I think it's a good purpose, and we can do what we need to do to build it up. As you know, we've been working with Constellation Schools in order to lease our 2 school buildings to them. It's been a long, long process, and we're still going through it. We're close to some agreement, but there's a lot more work to do before we have an agreement between the 2 of us. If that takes place, it would save us about $80,000 a year, because we would no longer have to pay insurance or utilities, which amounted to $75,000 this past year, just for insurance and utilities and some repairs that we had to make. So that would be a huge blessing to us. And the community center is going forward. The bishop now has the document to sign a lease for John Mulhall Center for sober living. And that will be also a great blessing to the parish, not only by the way they'll care for the building, but also the fact that these men will contribute to our parish in a wonderful way. I'm looking forward to that. The lower church, we need to put glass block windows in all those. We have some over on this side, but we need to do the rest because water's coming through those broken down windows. And they're between $300 and $500 a piece to do that job. So if anybody wants to help with that, it would be most grateful. The other thing is we need a new phone system in the rectory, and I'm working on that. Hopefully we'll get a real good deal to make it much more efficient. We should have $300,000 in savings that we never touch. That's kind of a good thing for everybody to think about. You should have enough money in the bank so if there was some kind of emergency, you could pay all your bills for about 6 months. And so that's another goal that I think we need to do. So I'm throwing out a lot of things at you right now, but I just want to say that we're really doing well, and I'm so grateful for what you're doing. I can't say anything more, but thank you. And if you have any questions about what we're doing financially, please just ask me. Sometimes people make things up or think things are going on that aren't going on or whatever. So if you hear something that you don't like, ask me because I probably have the answer. And I'd be willing to talk with anybody about all these things. I just encourage you to stay generous. St. Patrick Parish is doing very well, and we need to keep on doing it for the love of God. That's what we're here for. He's given it to us, and we need to take care of it. So I think that's about it. I don't think there's any necessity to go through all of these figures. You can look at them and figure them out. We've done really well this past year, and I'm projecting that we'll do even better in the next year. So thank you again, and keep it all in your prayers. If you want to know more things too, just let some members of the parish council know too, and then I can talk about it more if you'd like, but I don't want to continue this any longer than I have to. But thanks again. You know, every Thursday night, I was going to say about the cemetery, that every day I pray for all the people whose funerals I celebrated here and in my former parishes. And I do that from the bottom of my heart because they're all people who meant so much to all of you. And I pray for them. And I'm counting on their prayers back for us. Every Thursday night after confessions, I have benediction of the Blessed Sacrament in the church here. And when I lift that monstrance, you're all in my mind. When I raise the monstrance for the blessing, it's facing west and east. And then I turn with the blessing and it goes north and south. And I'm including in my prayer at that moment for Jesus' blessing upon all of you. That's what we're here for, to keep our lives centered on Christ. And I know all the many things that you need prayers for. And so I want you to know that I pray for you, not only on Thursday nights, but every single day. But especially that moment when I'm blessing the parish with the Blessed Sacrament. I think it's a powerful blessing for all of you. So I want to thank you. The gospel today talks about the two sons. One, the father asks to go work in the vineyard, and he says no. The other one says, I'll do it, but then he doesn't do it. The first one that said no was the faithful one because he regretted it, and he went and did the work. And I think that's where the Lord is asking us always to keep on working in his church. We can't say no, and if we do, we need to repent and come back and help. There was a man who retired, and he loved gardening, so he went out and bought a couple acres of land in the country, and he started working the land by himself. And it got to be a little too much for him, so he advertised for some help. And a young man came and offered to accept the job. So the man said, you see all those yellow flowers all over the place here? He said, I want you to dig them into the soil. And the kid said, I don't know much about gardening, but you certainly don't put beautiful flowers, just dig them into the soil. And he didn't take the job. So another man comes along and he says the same thing, dig these flowers into the ground. And he does it. And he works hard and he accomplishes the whole thing. And then afterwards, the man asked him, did you wonder why I wanted you to do that? And he said, well, I did, but he said, I presumed that you knew what you were doing. And so I followed your direction. And he said, well, those are mustard plants, and they're very good for enriching the soil. And so by tilling them into the ground, we enrich the soil for the other plantings we're going to make. I think that's where sometimes God is like that man to us, where he tells us to do something, and we may question it or wonder about God's wisdom, but then we do it because the Lord asked us to. And that in that way, we know we're accepting his wisdom and his guidance. So let us do that, continue to do that here in our parish. The Lord asks us to take care of it. If every single person does their part, we'll have no problem. And we'll continue to be a very alive parish here in West Park. So thank you again. And one thing I forgot with the finance report, just to tell you, is last year in June, a year ago for the fiscal year, we ended up with $73,000 of deficit spending. This year, in June, we had a $9,000 surplus. So we eliminated that deficit spending, and that's a huge plus for the finances too. So again, thank you for your generosity, and let's just keep going forward.